Guys, welcome back to a brand new video here on the channel. So Halloween is steadily approaching. It's the 21st of October. I don't know where the year's gone. It's scary, it's depressing, but I had a hankering to do another tier list. But instead of doing a tier list revolving around one slasher, one franchise, I wanted to do the ultimate tier list and look at slashers in general, just a whole array of slashers, have a tier list ready to go and rank them, I guess you could say, in terms of the aesthetic, the design of the character, the acting, the performance, what they're all about, what their motivation is, and what sets them apart from other slashers. So you've got each end of the spectrum when it comes to horror characters. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's so subjective as well. Like, we all have our favorite slashers, and it's always going to differ. That's why I love doing tier lists. Also, if you're wondering where Spawn is, someone finally bought a bust after my Spawn video the other day. So tomorrow he gets dumped with like 2 kilos of silicone so I can finally make a mold of him. So very excited about that. So again, the way I'm going to be looking at these slashers is, again, the design aesthetic, the look of the character, the performance as well. Some, for the most part, have had pretty much the same actor. Others have had an array of other actors, stuntmen, case in point, Michael Myers. This is going to differ from your opinions. This is all subjective, and it's also just for a bit of fun, just in the lead up to the spooky season, even though all year round here, it is the spooky season. Now, if there is a particular slasher that I haven't included, please don't take it personally. You'll be okay. Now, I have 19 slashers that we're going to be ranking with my tier list today. So right at the top, we have Beautiful and Badass, the perfect example of a well-engineered character. Below that, we have Still Effective, still pretty damn good, still pretty damn impressive. In the halfway point, we got Dull Edge, not as effective as some of the other slashers. For the most part, does the job, but still not overall proper scary factor. Next up, we got Meh, so it just really does nothing for me. And at the very bottom is Soft, like not scary at all. And just the design as well is just completely off. So again, these are in no particular order, which is what I love about tier lists, very off the cuff and just verbal diarrhea at its finest. So starting off, we're starting strong. We are going to be starting off with the character of Candyman, played famously by the late, great Tony Todd. Candyman, to me, is the example of what scared the absolute bejesus out of us when we were kids. It's that urban myth. It's that notion of having a sleepover with your friends, daring 2 of your friends to go into the bathroom and chant Candyman's name or Bloody Mary. Just that whole urban legend aspect that absolutely terrified you as a kid. When it comes to the aesthetic of Candyman, and you'll hear me say this a lot with a few characters that I'm going to be ranking today, I don't think anyone could have played him as well as Tony Todd did. Sure, there'd be other brilliant actors out there. I just think Tony Todd was the whole package and just brought complete professionalism, gravitas, and this charm, this scary charm that he just oozed as the character. The design as well, like Tony Todd was a big dude, the stature of him, the beautiful coat, the hook that is jammed into the stub on his arm. I love that. And again, it's that going back to having a sleepover with your friends that just absolutely terrified you. I like the urban setting of the first film, the whole backstory of Daniel Robitaille, everything. It just kind of is that folklore, Pied Piper, just again, that old kind of Hansel and Gretel type of approach, where it's just like a grim fairy tale at its absolute grimmest. Now, even though the films in terms of a trajectory went down, I still think the second one is pretty solid, but the first film is just so good. Now, obviously, we had the recent film with Yahya Abdul-Mateen, where Tony Todd made a cameo as a variant, just a version of Candyman. I still think, regardless, throughout those films, the one constant has always been Tony Todd as Candyman and has always maintained such a badass look as the character. So I'm going to pop Candyman in Beautiful and Badass. And it's one of those things where even if the films are shit and the character is still strong, that's still a good couple of brownie points. Next up, we have the Leprechaun. For the most part, played by Warwick Davis. We also have wrestler Hornswoggle, I think it is, and there's been a few other iterations of the character. But this is one of those things where right off the bat, the character knows what it is. The films know what they are. They are cheesy, schlocky fun. If this was one of those things where the first film started out as dark, gritty, much like the Elm Street franchise, but by the end you have the leprechaun like Freddy in Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, then that's when it would come down a couple of notches. But I think because from day dot, the films understood the assignment, that they're not trying to scare the bejesus out of people, even though I was terrified of the character when I was a kid, because I just took one look at Warwick Davis in the makeup. I'm like, well, that's horrifying. And then when I'd watch the films, I'm like, oh, okay, this is like comedy at its finest with a bit of horror thrown in there. Like, he's got a pogo stick jumping on a guy, and like, as gruesome and brutal as that is, there's something comedic about it. So in terms of scare factor, see, this one's a bit tricky because it's that fine line of, yes, there are horror elements, but for the most part, it's schlocky, comedic approach that it understood from day one. So I'm actually going to pop Leprechaun in dull edge. Like, I think again, because I know what to expect with these films, and it's maintained that even though Warwick Davis hadn't always played the Leprechaun, the design as well, the makeup, and he's just, as James A. Janisse says, he's just a little shit. So again, there's nothing really overly scary about the character, but the fact that it's maintained what it's set up in the first film throughout the other films, then yeah, I can get on board with that. Next up, we have Art the Clown, played by David Howard Thornton, birthed from the mind of Damien Leone. So there's been a lot of chat lately ever since Terrifier 3 came out and Terrifier 4's gearing up, and like when Chloe and I were at Halloween Horror Nights and you saw the big haunted house, the big haunt for Terrifier, and I was standing in line thinking, wow, Art the Clown is like taking over the horror world. And there's been a lot of chit chat of whether Art is going to rise to the ranks of, say, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers. I think so. I definitely think he's on the way. I think as well, what I appreciate is they've maintained what Art's all about. They could have gone the route of making Art talk. Damien Leone, could inject in a story beat where Art speaks. And I'm glad that has never happened. And I think the main through line is that David Howard Thornton has portrayed the character so well. It's his baby. It's Damien Leone's baby. And I think, again, like the Leprechaun, it is schlocky, but it's so horrific at the same time, and it's maintained that throughout. The design of Art as well. I remember seeing Art for the first time, and the face just freaked me out. It's really unsettling with that smile. You can feel his teeth clenching together. There is just something about the character that, as charming and as endearing as he is, which is by design, there's something just still so unnerving because these films amp up the gore, the violence. Each time you're wondering, how are they going to top this? And how is Art going to go about this? So I think because they've maintained what Art's all about, I'm going to pop him in still effective. Like, not top tier slasher. I definitely think he's on the way. Next up, we have Michael Myers. So this is the prime example of a character played by various actors or stuntmen. So by design, I like the fact that it's simplicity at its finest. An escaped mental patient kills a mechanic, takes his coveralls, just, bare basic stuff, steals a Halloween mask, some rope, a knife, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. And that's what I liked with the earlier Halloween films, is maintaining that mystery of Michael Myers. I don't want to learn too much about the monster. And then you get into the whole Thorn cult thing, and I don't really care for that. Even though I do find enjoyment in those films, I just liked the notion from the first and second film. This is just pure evil on a rampage. Like, you can't stop the evil. There is no explanation. There could be supernatural elements going on, but we're not going to touch on it. And then just the fact that Michael walks, yet somehow is able to catch up to you. Stuff like that. And yes, there have been different performances throughout the franchise, some not as strong as the others. And then you have like Nick Castle, James Drew Courtney, Dick Warlock turning in really great performances. Even Tyler Mane, a much more brutal and bigger Michael Myers. And he's one of the OG slashers. He's one of the top tier slashers. So of course, I'm going to pop him in beautiful and badass. Regardless of certain performances throughout the franchise, it's just the simplicity of it. some coveralls, a mask, and just a killing machine where, even though they explain a bit too much in other films, just going back to the basics of this is pure evil. And that's all you need to know. Right, another top tier slasher, we have Jason Voorhees, another character played by an array of actors and stuntmen. Even though technically we started out in the first film with Pamela Voorhees as the main antagonist of the film, and we saw a young Jason at the very end come out of the lake, but from then on out, it's been Jason Voorhees. So I'm not going to be talking about Pamela, I'm talking about Jason, clearly. It's one of those things where this is the epitome of like 80s slashers at its finest. One of their finest. And yes, it is following the notion of wearing a mask, being a mute, having a household item as a weapon. It still somewhat works. To me, out of the big three, Jason, I wouldn't say is the weakest or my least favorite. It just, for me, the order goes in Freddy, Michael, Jason. I still have fun with the films. I still want to see more of the character. Obviously, we've got Jason Universe happening at the moment. I just think he, to me, is not as effective as the top tier slashers, but still fucking fun nonetheless. So I'm going to pop Jason in still effective, probably much to the chagrin of a few people, but hey, it's better than popping him in soft. Next up, we have John Carver from Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. This was based on a short. It was like a mock trailer in Grindhouse, and then it got its own film. This is only one film at the moment. I do believe they're making a Thanksgiving 2. In terms of the character, it's kind of just... I don't know. I did have fun with the film, but to me, it's not a slasher that really sticks out to me. It's probably one of those things where I need to see more of the character. The design, it's John Carver. It's to do with Thanksgiving, the pilgrims, stuff like that. So... I don't know. It is very, of one day of the year, but, you could say the same about Halloween with Michael Myers. But I don't know. I feel like with Thanksgiving, I wouldn't say it's reaching the bottom of the barrel, but at the same time, it really does nothing for me. Like, I did have fun with the film. I think I probably just need to see more. So when it comes to John Carver, I'm going to pop him in meh. Next up, we have Pennywise the Dancing Clown. So I have a photo of Tim Curry, but I'm going to be basing it just on, the character on a whole. So we have Tim Curry, we have Bill Skarsgård. Vastly different in terms of performances, the approach to the character. I love both of those performances. I think at the end of the day, I probably have the nostalgia goggles to really latch on to Tim Curry's Pennywise, because much like Candyman, the fact that Pennywise is a killer clown, when you're a kid, that is horrifying. When you should be feeling fun and safe around a clown, when you have a clown that's doing the complete opposite of that, that's horrifying. And when It came out, the miniseries directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, it was terrifying. It was going back to the notion of Candyman, where you're at a sleepover, someone's parents had rented Stephen King's It, you watch it, and you're like, this is horrifying. But now I watch it, still with nostalgia. Tim Curry does an incredible job, but it leans more into the comedic side. But at times throughout the miniseries, he gets a bit heavy-handed, he gets a bit demonic, he gets a bit evil. And I think with Bill Skarsgård's approach, it's a lot more darker and depressing, which is fine. Like, this is a killer clown, or technically it's a million-year-old entity that fights with a giant turtle up in space. I think the fact that it's pairing two things that shouldn't be paired, killers and a clown. Like, again, when you're supposed to be entertained by a clown, but you're running from a clown that's trying to kill you and do demonic things to you, and this thing has a backstory that's like older than time itself, I think that's quite interesting. So I'm going to pop Pennywise in still effective. And I think, even though I adore Skarsgård's performance, I think Tim Curry brought this quality to Pennywise where you get sucked into the charm of the character, and then he'll turn around and bite your fucking head off. So I wanted to throw this one in for a bit of Aussie pride, but also I love the first two films, and that is Mick Taylor from Wolf Creek, played brilliantly by Mr. Cranky Pants himself, John Jarratt. So when Wolf Creek first came out, it was a big deal. It was like one of those DVDs, VHSs, where if your parents rented it, they had to be in the room, because it's full on. It's heavy, man. It is dark. And I don't think you could get anyone else to play Mick Taylor other than John Jarratt. I think he did such an incredible job. He broke the stereotype of what he was doing at the time. Like, he used to host Better Homes and Gardens. He was married to Noni Hazelhurst, who used to host Play School. And then he takes on this role, and then Wolf Creek goes worldwide. And what I love about Mick is he's so charming. He's so funny. He's so charismatic. He's a larrikin, like he's an Aussie larrikin. And then he'll grab a knife and stick it in your fucking spine and call you a head on a stick. And there are brutal, hard to watch scenes, not only in the first film and the second film. Even though the second film isn't as strong as the first, I still have a lot of fun with it. I think it's because of John Jarratt's performance and just the design of the character, the red flannelette, the hat, the rifle. You don't know where he's going to pop up because he knows the land. He's the survivalist. It's like Jason Voorhees from the 2009 Friday the 13th remake. He knows the Australian outback like the back of his hand. And if you're just a backpacker visiting, you're screwed. So even though I don't think he's top tier, I think he's still damn effective. Keep in mind, I haven't even watched the Wolf Creek series. I'm just happy and content with the first and second film. You know, people have said I should check it out, but I think much like Candyman, and I'm probably going to say this with a few other slashers and one coming up next, definitely, the character couldn't have the soul that it had if John Jarratt had not been in the role. Put it that way. And again, I think it was something so different as well. This isn't a monster, even though you could call him a monster with what he does to people, but he's not supernatural. He's a man that lives off the land, but he'll cut your fucking head off as well. I mean, what else is there to say about my next entry? Freddy Krueger. I think Freddy is the epitome of standing out from a crowd. In the 80s, when we had mute, masked killers with knives, machetes, household things as a weapon, Freddy comes along, who not only doesn't wear a mask, but has a mask of scar tissue, but speaks, has a personality, has a sick, twisted sense of humor. The design of the character with the sweater, red and green being two colors the eye hates seeing side by side. The fact that his weapon is homemade, it's unique. The fact that he goes into your dreams and we all have to sleep at some point. And like Candyman, like Mick Taylor, like Pennywise, no one could have played this part other than Robert Englund. He brought such a unique approach to the character, and he really invested in portraying this character. He put in the hard yards. He was 37 years old at the time, and he said he was a theatre snob, but when he got the role, Wes taught him to respect the genre. And he just breathed life into this character that Wes had brilliantly engineered. And even though the films definitely declined, and by the point of part 6, Freddy's Dead, where he's a Looney Tunes character, and as some people have said, a game show host, the fact that you go back to the first, second, and third Elm Street films, right there is a little time capsule of how dark Freddy could have been, of how dark Freddy was, and also that sick, twisted sense of humor. So I think, to me, and I'm trying not to be biased, but I think Freddy is just such a brilliantly engineered character. And again, Robert Englund just added so much more to the character after Wes designed him. So, of course, I'm going to pop him in Beautiful and Badass. Next up, we have Jigsaw. For the most part, John Kramer, aka Tobin Bell. A character with a spin on it that doesn't directly kill people for the most part. It's giving them the choice, and then hilarity ensues. Again, like Freddy, like Candyman, like Pennywise, Tobin Bell just brought such a intense energy to the character. And Saw, like the first Saw, was just such a worldwide phenomenon. And look at the franchise now. Look at where we're at. Like, we're up to Saw 10 and hopefully, a couple more, if given the fact it's going to be the same as Saw 10, because I really enjoyed Saw 10. Great to see Tobin Bell back. I think there's something very intriguing about the character. And it's that by proxy thing of he's not directly murdering these people, he's giving them the choice. Live or die. Choice is yours. Although not as strong as the top tier slashers, I'm still going to pop him in still effective. And again, I think it's because even though he's not overly designed, It's just a guy, wears for the most part, the red and black cloak, but just the design of how he sets people up, sets his victims up. And again, it's the by proxy thing. It's something smart. It's not overtly killing someone. It's not overtly just murdering someone in plain sight. He's behind the scenes, he's behind the curtain, and he's giving them the choice. So I appreciate that. Next up, we have Ghostface from the Scream franchise, portrayed by an array of people and an array of characters from the film. It's not just one person doing the damage. So with Ghostface, it's simplicity at its finest. Like Michael Myers, you got a jumpsuit and a mask. This time you got a ghost mask and a robe and a buck 120. And some very, very rare Reebok boots, even though the boots do change throughout the film. So again, it's one of those things where anyone can be Ghostface, and it's the whodunit spin on it, like trying to join all the dots together throughout each film and assessing who could be the killer from the beginning of the film. And then there's the red herring usually, and it's not who you expect, but sometimes it is who you expect. I think that's what makes Ghostface so fun. It's the whodunit aspect. I like that they haven't changed the design throughout the films. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And like when the first Scream film came out, Ghostface masks were just a hot commodity. And I wish I had have stockpiled as many Gen 1 and Gen 2 masks as I could when I was a little pipsqueak kid. But no, I was just wearing the masks and tearing them up and sticking my tongue through the little mouth opening and everything, not knowing that these things would be worth an absolute mozza later on in my life. But again, it's that unique thing of anyone can be Ghostface. You don't know who it is at first, even though some people figure it out in the first 5 minutes, like my wife, she's just like Rain Man when it comes to that. I'm keen to see where they take Scream 7 with the whole supposed AI approach and figuring out and dissecting who the killer is going to be once the film starts. So I like that. Even though it's sort of a rinse and repeat thing, I'm a sucker for that. So I'm going to be popping Ghostface in Still Effective. Next up, we have the character of Hannibal Lecter, first portrayed by Brian Cox, but for the most part portrayed by the brilliant Anthony Hopkins. And that is not to take away from Brian Cox. He is a brilliant actor, but I think Anthony Hopkins just elevated that character. Now, this isn't a slasher where he's out there stabbing people, slitting throats, abruptly in your face. This is a calm, calculated, psychologically fucking with your mind slasher. This is a trained doctor. This is a man of class, and that's what I love about Hannibal. He can get inside your head and fuck with you within the first 5 minutes of meeting you. And that's in thanks to Anthony Hopkins' brilliant performance, not just from Silence of the Lambs through to Hannibal and Red Dragon. He's always been that constant through with the character. And even though the original was played by Brian Cox, like I said, Hopkins just elevated the character. And then the design as well, with the face muzzle when he's strapped to the gurney, and I don't know, that is where he enters that slasher realm with a signature trademark. But then when he first meets Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs, he's just in a jumpsuit like Michael Myers, and he's just standing there in his cell, waiting to fuck with Clarice's head. And then in Hannibal, when he's out on the loose and they're in Italy, and like it becomes much more of a slasher film in Hannibal. And you got Mason Verger and the pigs, and Hannibal's like, gutting a guy and throwing him off a balcony. So whereas with the first Silence of the Lambs, it's more subdued and he's just getting inside your head. And even though he's not the main antagonist in the film, it's Buffalo Bill, he had such a commanding presence, which rightfully so earned Anthony Hopkins an Oscar. That's with brilliant writing of the character, just getting into your mind and leaving that lasting impression. So much like, Ghostface and everyone in the Still Effective part, I'm actually going to pop Hannibal. Yeah, I'm actually going to pop Hannibal in Beautiful and Badass. I think because the classiness of the character, it's not like a grungy, disgusting monster. This is a man of elegance and class, but will rip out your tongue and eat your brain or your liver, whatever. Next up, we have Pinhead, the Hell Priestess, portrayed by Doug Bradley, but also Jamie Clayton and a couple of other actors. So I fucking adore Pinhead, man. Even though I don't adore all of the films in the Hellraiser franchise, and I actually really liked the reboot, I thought Jamie Clayton did a very commendable job. Doug Bradley brought his all to the character of Pinhead. I think because he's such an English gentleman as well, and Pinhead is so soft-spoken, like Hannibal, elegant, a man of class, or a thing of class, whatever you want to call Pinhead. When it comes to the design, it was so out there and so strange and bizarre. You've got the BDSM leather going on. You've got strips of flesh being torn off. The beautiful makeup on Doug Bradley. And I think that's in thanks to the shape of his head and the way he portrays himself, handles himself, carries himself, not just in the first film, but throughout the franchise. Yes, most of the films are shit, but you can always rely on Doug Bradley to turn in a damn good performance. I like the notion of pleasure and pain, and, you know, to some people, this is what they want. This is what they want to experience. And then Pinhead, the Cenobites, the Gash, they are there to facilitate that. So I know Pinhead isn't as popular as the top 3 slashers, but to me personally, I've just always loved the character. I think it's such a beautiful design as well, and just birthed from the beautifully twisted mind of Clive Barker. I'm gonna pop Pinhead in Beautiful and Badass. All right, next up we have the Grabber, portrayed by Ethan Hawke in The Black Phone and recently Black Phone 2. Now, I did my review a couple of days ago of Black Phone 2. I appreciated the approach they went for. Instead of doing, you know, a prequel, an origin story of how the Grabber became the Grabber, even though we do see instances and sprinklings of a younger Grabber in Black Phone 2. To me, the Grabber is at his best in The Black Phone because of the dark, depressing setting in this unsuburbia part of America, set in a period where things are bleak, child abductions going on, and the Grabber at the center of it. Again, it's grounded in reality, even though there are supernatural elements in the first and clearly the second. I think the Grabber as well is just so unsettling and upsetting to watch because you don't know what he's going to do next. And he's so quiet and chill and then can just lash out. And I love that little sequence of when Ethan Hawke's just sitting there in the chair in the kitchen with his shirt off. And I'm like, dude, this is so unsettling. This is like in Scream 2 when Ghostface is passed out and the girls have to get over Ghostface, a passed out Ghostface. You don't know when he's going to wake up. Very much like this. I like the design of the mask, and you can switch out different masks to different emotions. I think that's kind of clever and I wouldn't say funny, but just that little addition of humor, I guess you could say. So even though we're 2 films in, I don't know what's going to happen next with the future of the franchise, with the Grabber. I still think it's a pretty damn solid character, and a recent character of that. So I'm going to pop the Grabber in, still effective. Leatherface. Another character that's been portrayed by an array of actors, lots of aesthetic changes throughout the franchise. Recently, I got to talk to the beautiful Brock Powell, who was in Monster the Ed Gein Story, where they showcased the making of the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I think Brock did an incredible job, and I want to see more of him as Leatherface. I think it'd just be great if he got to play Leatherface in another iteration of Chainsaw Massacre. I think he'd do a great job. But when you think about it, when you think about the character stripped down, like just bare basic stuff, for the period it came out, 1974, the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I wish I was a teenager watching this for the first time in the cinema, because it's so unsettling. Like this cannibal family, this man that has a childlike mind, and like Brock and I were talking about, he in his head thinks he's doing the right thing, protecting his family if people come onto the property, but the childlike quality that the character exudes and trying to protect his family, but then also grab a mallet and smash your brains in, grab a chainsaw, cut your limbs off, cut your fucking head off. It's so raw, visceral, and that first film perfectly showcases that. So to me, it's, you know, the first film and the remake from 2003. I think those films really encapsulate the raw Texas heat, the grindhouse, almost bordering on snuff film approach to the character. And Gunnar Hansen just birth this character to from something that I feel like he was helping his friend Toby Hooper out with, and like Nick Castle with The Shape, just helping a friend out, but just birth this iconic character. So what else is there to say about Leatherface? So with that, I'm going to be popping him in Beautiful and Badass. Okay, we've got our final four. So next up, we have Chucky, aka Charles Lee Ray from the Child's Play franchise. Much like a lot of these characters, the through line for me has always been Brad Dourif, but also the beautiful animatronics of Chucky. I like that they're including voodoo in amongst all this, and we had Charles Lee Ray, the Lakeshore Strangler, played by actually Brad Dourif, which is great. That was really cool to see. I think much like Leprechaun, there's always going to be that dark humor, that sick, twisted sense of humor. And even though the Child's Play films didn't start out as schlock like Leprechaun, they understood the assignment that Chucky is in a league of his own, incorporating the humor, but also will slit your throat open, stuff like that. And just having that personality and that beautiful voice work by Brad Dourif, the animatronics that were started by Kevin Yeager, and then, we got Tony Gardner and his crew taking over, and the evolution of how these animatronics evolve, and originally starting out as a good guy doll, and it's like a Cabbage Patch Kid, it's cute. And then I liked also that at one point they were going to have 5 o'clock shadow on Chucky, and it got progressively worse as he became more and more evil, twisted, and out there, and he showed more of himself instead of hiding in this good guy doll. So even though I don't think Chucky is as strong as the top tier slashers, the constant through for me has always been Brad Dourif, but also the design of the character. I like when they changed the design for Bride of Chucky and he looks stapled together like Frankenstein, stuff like that. I like where they shift little things here and there, even though with the remake, and he's voiced by Mark Hamill, who I think did a great job, very commendable to give that a crack. The design of Chucky there just really fell off the wagon for me, but I'm going to be popping Chucky in Still Effective. Understood the assignment from day dot, have a bit of humor thrown in there. Even though the films along the way have a very rocky reputation, I still think Chucky's just always going to be great. Okay, we're down to our final three. So third last, well, not last in general per se, we have Norman Bates from Psycho. Now, again, I'm sorry if I keep repeating myself, but Anthony Perkins absolutely crushed it as the character of Norman Bates. And when you think about the design, he's just a dude. He's just a regular dude, owns a motel, and much like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, well, pretty much all these that came out before I was born, I would have loved to have been a young man watching this for the first time up on the big screen with that hook at the end that he's dressed up in drag as his mother, and he's kept his mother's mummified corpse in the house. Back then, that would have been so twisted and unnerving to watch. And as he says in the first film, a man's best friend is his mother. And it's just so unsettling. And even Psycho 2, Psycho 3, like, he's always just been a constant. And he's just brought that character to life in the best way possible. And that's what I like about Norman Bates. He's not a demonic presence. He's not an entity. He's a man. Who has a lot of psychological issues, but with the performance as well. And not just that, just the design of the character, what his motives are, his sick, twisted fantasies, like spying on guests at the motel. It's brilliant. And again, it's just such a classic and simple character. But because of the execution in the films and the performance of Anthony Perkins, like obviously there are other iterations, and we're talking about the character just in general, I think it's just such a great little thing in amongst slashers that have such a deep, rich history in terms of their background and what they're all about, and the supernatural presence, in the other realm, dream realm, everything. This guy is based in reality. So that's why, to me, he sticks out from the crowd in the best way possible. So Norman Bates, man, he goes in Beautiful and Badass. Second last, we have the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. And no, let's not get into the whole Victor Salva thing. It's not what we're all about. But we're going to be talking about the character of the Creeper. I think the strongest performance and appearance of the Creeper is the first Jeepers Creepers. It scared the absolute shit out of me. I don't know how he got custom license plates with his car. I don't know if he registered that thing at the DMV. Who knows? But the design of the Creeper, fucking brilliant, man. Like this gargoyle ancient creature that would stand on probably rock formations thousands, millions of years ago. I love that. I love the oversized hat, the trench coat. I don't know how to feel about the wings aspect. To me, even when I was young and watched the first film and those wings burst out, I was like, okay, look, I get it, but at the same time, I could have gone without the wings. But I love the mandibles on the face. And then with the recent Jeepers Creepers, it's so far removed from what we started out with. But just the hole that he has in the first film, and I think of the way as well the film is shot with the first Jeepers Creepers, that's why this character is so effective as well. They try and keep him as hidden as possible for the longest time. And they don't reveal too much of the monster. They just give you breadcrumbs along the way, just little glimpses, but then that final beautiful reveal. Like, I love that sequence where he's got Justin Long and holding him, and it looks brilliant. So by design, a sick character, but also the motives as well, while simple, you know, it's not exactly deep and layered. So I'm not going to say it's dull edge. I wouldn't say dull edge. I think because of the design as well, that's why it comes up a couple of notches. So yeah, I'm going to pop the Creeper mostly from the first film. Still effective. And last but certainly not least, the Tall Man, aka Jebediah Morningside from the Phantasm series. A very different character of that, played by the brilliant late great Angus Scrimm. So this dude's a mortician who gets curious about the afterlife, the nether realm, and is able to travel there and then enlist the help of demons. And he's just a man dressed in a suit, a very tall man, a very tall mortician man dressed in a suit who has a killer sphere. So that's it. Like Norman Bates, like other characters on this tier list, just simplicity at its finest. But it's such an interesting concept as well. A mortician who just gets curious about the afterlife, and then after that, hilarity ensues. I think as well because the design's so simple, but you had such a brilliant character actor that breathed life into this role. The minimal dialogue as well, all through his facial mannerisms, like, you know, with the half up eyebrow, stuff like that. He's such a different and unique slasher, and not like a traditional slasher per se. Kind of, you know, elements of Hannibal Lecter, where an elegantly dressed man, you know, nice tailored suit, very subdued, doesn't say much, but also at the same time can do horrific things to you and can enlist the help of other things that can do horrific things to you. I wouldn't say he's one of the more forgotten slashers, but I feel like he needs to be talked about a bit more. So I'm going to pop him in still effective. And there you go, guys. That was my ultimate slasher tier list in terms of design, acting, the performance, the background of them, stuff like that. So this was a long ass video. I had to stop at one point because my battery was dying, and it actually is still dying now. So there you go. With that being said, drop a comment below and let me know your rankings of your favorite slashers. Again, if there was one that wasn't included in here, I do apologize. And also, this is just my opinion and it's just a bit of fun. I'm nearly finished watching Halloween Aftermath. Brand new Halloween fan film that I definitely want to talk about. Need to do my review as well for Primate. And Halloween's closing in. I'm not okay with that. Either way, guys, have a fantastic day. Love you guts. And I'll catch you in the next one.